Hello everyone, Darcenovia here once again, and another review on a Star Wars novel. This time being another review on the X-Wing series, Solo Command, the seventh book of the X-Wing series, and the third and final book in this arc with Wraith Squadron. Now, there are three more books, two of which are sandwiched between series of novels such as post Thrawn trilogy and one of them between one of the Kalissa novels. That is quite a ways away, considering I'm slowly but surely rereading a lot of the material from the New Republic era. So yes, I am rereading the EU, and for the past year, I've actually been doing that. Now, reading this book, basically the last of the pre-Thrawn trilogy books in chronological order, one of them, I'm going to have to say I regret not reading these books sooner. Now, I will get more in depth with the story in the spoiler section, like I always do with these more detailed reviews. Now, what did I particularly like about X-Wing in the non-spoiler section? Well, what I like about this book, I will get into further detail in the spoiler section, is how there isn't a signal dull moment in here. And of course, this is something I regret not doing in my earlier reviews of the X-Wing series, is not actually talking about what one of the biggest strengths of these novels is the banter between the characters and how these feel like a real unit. Now, the State of Star Wars podcast, I did learn something interesting, and I'm bringing this up, where Michael Stockpole, how the Air Force works and how much they bond because their survival rate is low in the first few missions. Now, the Wraith Squadron books are darker in their tone than the Rogue Squadron books. And considering that this is the last of these pre-Thrawn trilogy, I'm just going to have to say this. I love the Wraith Squadron characters. I think they all have great personalities, and it's hard to choose a favorite. Keel, I actually thought he would have been the protagonist of this, just like Corran Horn was for the Rogue Squadron novels, but that didn't happen. This series, as they say, subverted my expectations. There was even some characters I actually grew to like, one of which died, and has one of the saddest moments in this series. Now, the only reason I'm bringing up those events from those novels is I don't intend to re-review those, because I don't want to repeat, what I'm saying here. And considering the fact this gives me a chance to talk about what I regretted not, talking about those reviews, I'm just going to say that. And I think these novels do a good job of giving us characters that aren't part of the main cast and making them great characters in their own right. Now, I think one of my favorite characters that were introduced in these particular novels was Laura. I actually think she was a great character, and a complex character at that. I enjoyed, this character. She was introduced in the first novel of this series, and I enjoyed her conclusion. I think it was a satisfying way of sending this character off without, again, I will get more into that with spoilers. I think Dalos had a good arc as well, overcoming his trauma with the destruction of Talon's squadron. And overall, it I enjoy every little moment that this book gives us. And we get one of the rare occurrences where we see Han Solo in a command position, which he won't have after this book. Now, for the non-spoiler section of this book, I'll just say this to end it. This was a great read. I'm sad to see this end, but then again, I have 2 novels to go. One of which it is written by Michael Stockpole, and the final, Aaron Austin novel. I enjoy this author, and it's going to be sad when I'm done reading this series because it's been a good time. Anyway, as usual, classic rating for this. Now, I'm going to go into the spoiler section where I will dive more into this story of this book. So, let's begin. For those of you who don't want a 20-year-old book spoiled, I would leave now. If you don't care and you just want to hear my thoughts of this book, then, well, let's begin with the spoiler section. Alright, with the spoiler section here, I'm going to be talking about what I overall thought of the book. Now, I'm not going to do a summary of everything that has happened, so I'm going to be talking about, what I thought of the story and how do I feel like this advanced these characters, in whatever ways. Of course, at the start of this book begins with an assassination attempt on Admiral Akbar. And that is definitely something that definitely intrigued me when I first read it. Because I was like, wait, what? Someone tried to assassinate Akbar? Now, since I've read pretty much the entirety of the post-Return of the Jedi, timeline, Akbar's not going to die until way later. But it was an intriguing way to start a book. Because, it starts with the near assassination of Akbar. What's next? And as things go on with this book, there's things, that are really interesting. Han Solo, who didn't really show up much in these novels, is one of the lead characters here. And I really enjoyed seeing Han in a position of general. It's something we don't get to see very often in Star Wars expanded universe materials. Han, for most of the EU, is not in a commanding position. So to see him in a different position than he normally was an interesting read. Now, Aaron Austin, as a writer, tends to add a lot of humor into his books. And I actually think it works. One thing that stands out for me when it comes to the humor is where Han trolls the shit out of Zinj when he basically has Chewbacca talk to him instead. And in all honesty, let's be real with ourselves. It is something totally what Han would do if he was in this position. This is one thing I really do love about these, old novels. Since I've been reading them for so long now, I could really appreciate this. How the authors who wrote these books, Aaron Austin, understood these characters. And if they were in these kind of situations, I could see this happening in the movies if Han had an opportunity to do so. And you know what? I found this trolling moment funny. And I think Aaron Austin, I actually think he does humor really well. And he also does banter really well. And I really liked how he wrote the interactions between Wraith Squadron and Rogue Squadron, which we don't get that much interactions with them in this series. And seeing some of my boys again, Corran Horn, Tycho. It's like, I miss these guys. I wish I can read about these guys again. And then again, in all honesty, I like the characters in the Wraith more, like Peggy, Keel, Lara. I think, and Dados. I think they're really cool characters, and I really like how they compare and contrast to each other. And of course, speaking of Laura, I think she is an interesting character, and I think her dynamic with the rogues is an interesting one. At first, she comes there to destroy them because she's a spy. She's a spy. She has multiple identities. She's changed her identity multiple times throughout the years, and to see her actually slowly start to care about them and be reluctant to betray them, I think it makes what she ultimately does later in the story a lot more satisfying. And one thing what we can't talk about when it comes to a Star Wars novel that features X-wings and anything that's military styles battles, how much of a good job that Aaron Austin does when describing space battles. Because if you can't describe space battles in a novel that is focusing on essentially space battles, essentially, then there's no reason to pick these up. And I think he does an excellent job with these. And, well, of course, throughout this book, it is a struggle to fight against Zenith. And it feels like the eventual victory in this book is eventually earned. Now, the thing I really do like about this book is it feels so fast-paced. Like, when I was done reading it, it's like, wait, that's it? I'm done? And that is the sign of a good book. That is the sign of a good novel. And I don't talk about this enough, and it's a crime that I don't talk about this enough. But a good book, especially for Star Wars, is how well does it glue your eyes to the pages? How fast do you go through the books? Because if it makes you want to go through it quickly, because then it's not a good book. But if you're devouring it so quickly you don't even realize it, that is a good novel. And every one of these books, the Wraith Squadron novels, I think are a page turner. And when it comes to great Star Wars novels, I don't think people take it, really appreciate these enough. And from the small moments in this book to the eventual finale, makes this novel stand out for me. Now, what I really love about this book is the character of Laura, which is what a lot of this book is, focus on. I really did enjoy, her moment where she said goodbye to the Wraiths and, well, obviously, the person that she had a relationship with. And how did her arc end? I actually expected, reading Solo Command, that she was going to die. I actually honestly thought that, considering the kind of character that she was. I honestly thought she was going to die. And I was pleasantly surprised that she didn't. She probably did appear in future books, for all I know. I don't know. A lot of the books, that I've reviewed, I haven't read in, over half a decade, it feels like. So, yeah, reading these has made me to have a new appreciation for the other books that Aaron Austin wrote later in the timeline, like Legacy of the Force, Fate of the Jedi. I really did enjoy this. And there's another character I forgot to mention. Now, the character that I'm going to be talking about is Baron Fell. Now, I'm going to get no secret. I have not read any of the comics that he's featured in. I am familiar with him mostly through his son, Jagged Fell. So, I can't talk much because I haven't read the comics that he was featured in. But I will tell you this. I was actually surprised that he wasn't here. But again, when he was basically on the ground, it was obvious at that point. I was just, okay, there's no way. Considering, yeah. But I was actually pleasantly surprised that a character, that I actually thought was there wasn't. Now, I gotta talk about the ending for basically the second arc of the X-Wing series. And how do I feel about the series as a whole so far? Now that I've read 7 out of the 10 books. Now, I will discuss X-Wing Mercy Kill way later, but I'll just be saying this. The first 4 X-Wing novels are excellent. Great books. Some of the best Star Wars storytelling ever. I think every book was a page-turner. I couldn't wait to read the next one. And it felt like one big story arc. Now, the Wraith Squadron books, being 3 books in the pre-Thrawn trilogy, each one of these was... It felt I just can't choose which one is my favorite. Because they're all so good. Though, if I had to be real, my favorite book of this series, I can't decide. In the Wraith Squadron's books, I can't decide. Because the Wraith Squadron book, every single one of these books are so good. In fact, you could read the Wraith Squadron books without reading the Rogue Squadron books. Because they stand completely on their own. And in my opinion, I really do wish I would have read these books sooner. Solo Command does such a good job. And it ties into the next book chronologically, The Courtship of Princess Leia. Even though this was published 4 years after that book, and this would be one of the last books that would be released in the Bantam era, this is still a book that I can't get enough of. I love this book. I love all of these novels. And I hope Del Rey and Random House does an unabridged of all of these books. Mark Thompson, reading him, hearing him do Solo Command would be so good. Yeah, I know I've been rambling for the past few minutes, but these books are so good, and this one in particular. What would I ultimately give this in terms of rating? It's obvious. Isn't it obvious what I think of the X-Wing books? I've been praising these books in every review. I have very little things to say that hasn't been said already by many reviewers. They're great books. Some of the best Star Wars stories you'll ever read. Of course, I'm not going to tell you read this book because you should read the others first, but as a whole, I give the Wraith Squadron books a classic rating. The Solo book, it's obvious, it's classic. I think it's a great read. It's one of the best Star Wars Expanded Universe novels I've ever read. And if I have to be honest with you, I think you should read these. The X-Wing books are some of the best Star Wars you'll ever read. Next time, I will be reviewing an Expanded Universe novel. I'll be revisiting a novel that I didn't do justice the first time. Yes, my next review is going to be a revisit. Whatever that next book is going to be, you're going to have to figure that out because I'm not going to spoil it. May the Force be with you. May we all live long and prosper. And see you guys next time with another review on Star Wars Legends.